Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, "Woke up the CEO at midnight because manager told me to." He wasn't happy. I was working IT for Safeway Corporate. Throughout the day, employees can submit for tech support by either calling the number or sending an email. As we were mostly a call center, the emails, called web tickets, would back up as everyone was busy on the phone. They would nominate a few agents to jump off the phones and call out on these emails we got. The average person would do 20 to 40 by the end of their shift. I got assigned to a special group assisting other tech specialists with telephony engineering issues. Phones don't work. We needed someone to work the night shift to help the night guys. I gladly volunteered. We got maybe 3 calls a night, and that was for general tech support. I helped with maybe one thing a week. My manager asked why I wasn't very busy at night. I told him all stores are closed except those in Hawaii and we just don't have the same volume of calls. He tells me he wants to see me work web tickets at night. I work a few web tickets from 10 to 11 when I show up and a few more from 5 to 6, but don't have much success as night and morning stock crews want to put product on the shelves, not reboot a printer that is probably already working just fine. My manager calls me in and is saying that everyone works significantly more web tickets than I do and he wants to see my numbers go up. I explained to him that the majority of the tickets are for stores that are closed or for our corporate office in California where execs are sleeping. He says he doesn't want excuses. So that night I call all 200 tickets. It isn't difficult and doesn't take long because no one answers, and I leave the typical voicemail explaining why I called and to please give us a call back. The next morning my manager calls me in furious. Apparently high-level corporate execs called my manager personally wanting to know why they were getting woken up in the middle of the night by tech support. My manager asks, "Did you call these people just to prove a point?" I could have said many things. "Just following orders, sir, just doing my job. What did you expect? Do you know how dumb you look?" Instead I simply replied, "Yup." His reply, "Well played." He no longer expected me to do web tickets at night. The next story is titled, "You Don't Have Time to Talk Privately, Okay." So I have worked in IT most of my life. One day in a job I was in, it was slow, so the manager asked me to check the firewall logs for anything dodgy. Pretty soon I find indications of a female staff member accessing some racy content of the adult nature. This staff member had a reputation for blaming her slow productivity on her computer, network, mouse, etc., so she was given no quarter. I go up to the large office where she is surrounded by many other staff members, but here monitors are facing a wall and only she can see them. I politely ask to speak to her in private for a moment in a meeting room. Her response, "No, I don't have time, I'm too busy." Again I quietly said it would be in her best interest to have this conversation discreetly. Her, "Look. Stop wasting my time and say what you need to say." I pause. Clear my throat and say loud and clear, "Okay, the IT manager has asked that you stop accessing bondage porn sites on your work computer." There's a moment of stunned silence where the staff member turns scarlet and everyone looked at her, including her manager. Me, "Okay, see you later." And I turned and left the office. The next story is titled, "Want me to cover up my tattoos?" Sure. You never said what with. Let's set the scene. So this was a few years back. I have quite a few tattoos, basically all my chest, my upper back, top half sleeves and one on the inside of each forearm, about 15 centimeters across. Less than these last 2 are what started it all. I worked for a cinema chain for a long time. Always had tattoos. I landed myself a management role. More like a supervisor. The standard uniform was black shirt and black trousers. I prefer a short-sleeved shirt due to being a bigger guy and cinemas being bloody hot. My site manager quite liked my tattoos and other quirks that I had. My area manager, however, did not. She would come into the site, walk past 8 other staff with full-sleeve tattoos and make AB lines straight to me, stating that my tattoos need covering up, and I quote, "They're not offensive, just a lot of people don't like them." Now my tattoos aren't offensive, they're just patterns. She informed me that I had to wear long sleeves to cover them up, otherwise I would face disciplinary action. I had read the employee handbook a few times because of other petty crap, so I know it was the manager's decision, my site manager, but she decided to overrule it. What she forgot was just because the normal retail staff had to wear black, management were allowed to wear white. Just nobody did, cause it was hard to keep clean. So what should I do? I know, let's go and buy the thinnest, cheapest, most see-through white long-sleeve shirt I can find. Now if you could only see her face when she came in next, when I'm basically wearing a shirt more see-through than tracing paper. I'm talking, you can see the color shift from my individual chest hairs, and all my tattoos are on show for everyone to see while stood behind the tills talking to customers. Needless to say, I got to wear my short-sleeved black shirt again after that. The next story is titled "Owner of Small Video Game Studio Treats Employees Like Crap, Doesn't Read His Own Email, Ends Up Paying Thousands for Drinks at Company Party." I worked at a small, less than 100 people, video game studio about a decade ago. The studio did mostly console ports for larger publishers, and was notorious for severely underpaying its employees, and for screwing employees out of contracts so that the boss could make a profit, which he never shared with the company. When I became a manager, I tried to lobby for higher pay for my hourly workers, as the pay was $8 an hour in 2011, and there were 3 guys on my team so broke they were literally living in their car in the parking lot. Boss, who was also co-owner of the studio, frankly said to me, "I will continue to pay $8 an hour until I can't find anyone willing to work for $8 an hour." He was also notorious for bringing on unpaid interns, making them do the work of a full employee, promising them employment at the end of the internship, then breaking his promise. Boss was notorious for being a tightwad. He excluded hourly employees from company meals during OT, and would claim he was feeling generous when he would let the hourlies eat after all of the other employees had already cleared out 2/3 of the food and what was left was stale and congealed. At one point a contract with a larger company fell through, and boss man let half of the studio know about their layoffs by holding a meeting for them in the parking lot, and letting employees know that their jobs were gone, their passes to the doors were disabled, and they could expect their belongings mailed back to them in a week. He let some employees go back in to get things like wallets and car keys, but under security escort. Time comes for a release party for a game that got released before this mass layoff happened. Boss man emails out to the whole company letting everyone know how generous he's feeling, that he's going to allow all of the laid-off employees on the project to come to the release party of the game they made. It was at a swanky place in town known for high-end cocktails, among other things. Boss man writes in his email invite that there was a $15 per drink limit. What he meant to say was that each person at the party had a $15 limit for drinks for the night total. What the bar and everyone else interprets, correctly, as that there was a $15 per drink limit. Employees stifled giggles as they read the email invite that was also sent as instructional to the bar, and excitedly exchanged text messages and emails with the laid-off employees. Boss man is also notorious for not showing up to his own parties until 2 hours in. Cue the night of the party. Everyone shows up bright and early, and as soon as the party officially starts, everyone swarms the bar asking for the most expensive cocktails and liquor the bar had to offer. People were downing French 75s and Ramos gin fizzes and 35-year-old shots of Glenfiddich. Every employee and former employee was 5 to 6 fancy cocktails in and 3 sheets to the wind by the time boss man shows up. He saunters in to cheers and pats on the back from laid-off employees, who are so drunk by now that they probably saw 3 of him. He smiles and waves magnanimously, thinking the former and current employees were drowning their sorrows at their own cost. He wanders up to the bar to check in with the barkeep and see what the damage was so far. After 20 seconds of conversation, the smile from his face has disappeared completely and been replaced with a scowl. Words are spoken, barkeep disappears and comes back with manager. Tenser words are exchanged with the manager, who disappears into a back office and then returns with a piece of paper, presumably a copy of whatever contract boss man had made for the party. The bar and the drinking partiers were in the right. The company at the time was not financially able to handle the price of the drinks, and boss man was made to pay the cost out of his own pocket. Sadly, he was not able to afford a Porsche and a BMW that year. The company had to shutter about a year after this event. The next story is titled, "Sorry Boss, I Don't Speak Spanish." I work at a hotel as a night auditor, and this malicious compliance begins with a small bit of information I was told when I was initially hired for this position. When I interviewed for the position, and this is very important later on, I was told by the HR lady that the hotel paid a bonus $100 for each foreign language I spoke well enough to serve our guests. Management cleared my $100 for speaking English after I passed through their evaluation period. My main language is Portuguese. At first, I was glad to be working in the night shift, mostly because my colleague then, Mr. Castillo, was from Guatemala, so whenever any guests that spoke Spanish showed up, he handled it, and in turn, I handled any English-speaking foreigners. Naturally, he did a lot more work since the amount of Spanish-speaking guests we receive is significantly larger than our English-speaking ones. Meanwhile, Mr. Castillo was in the process of learning English and I had taken an interest in Spanish, so we helped each other out. Not long after, Mr. Castillo got himself a job paying several times over what the hotel did and sadly, left me. My new colleague, a newly promoted bellboy, didn't speak English, though he could understand some, and didn't speak Spanish at all. In fact, he didn't even try to improve any of his language skills while I slowly kept improving my Spanish, trying to use more and more of it every day to serve our dear guests. As of the start of this month, I spoke to our front desk manager and asked him in plain Spanish, what did I have to do exactly to receive the $100 bonus for speaking Spanish? He was surprised but said nothing more since the front desk got busy with checkouts and my shift was up, but a few days later he mentioned he spoke to HR and informed them I was speaking Spanish well enough to receive my bonus, and now he was just waiting to hear back from them. A few days later, the HR lady asked me what size shirt I wore since they were going to be ordering new uniforms in the coming weeks, and took the opportunity to ask her about my bonus for Spanish, and she mentioned they were talking with our director about it. A day later she informed me they wouldn't be paying me the bonus for a foreign language since it was on file that I was already receiving it. I replied I was receiving a bonus for English, not Spanish, and she said she would speak to the director again and within a few days, all would be made well. Now I'm not really in a hurry to get my bonus, but it would be nice if they had cleared it already, as it would show up in my next paycheck, but guess what? They didn't. Our director talked to HR again, and my boss, and told them that, even though I am serving our dear Spanish-speaking guests in Spanish, I don't in fact speak Spanish. I'm far from fluent, but I can explain how the hotel works, direct guests to where they need to be and assist them with what they need, be it finding a pharmacy at 3 a.m., getting a cab to go out and get drinks, or even hire an escort. Yep, but apparently it isn't good enough for our director, and my manager said he can't really afford to fight him on it. Okay, no biggie I guess, maybe we'll try again next year when I can speak a little better, I thought. However, the cruel and unforgiving gods of the hotel industry gave me the perfect opportunity to strike back. Earlier last week we received a large group of 30-plus Spanish-speaking tourists, which in addition to our normal occupancy, meant we were effectively sold out for the week. Big groups are usually a minor inconvenience when you're checking them in, but an even bigger problem when checking them out. Especially if they're one person per room, which means you basically have a huge load of rooms to check out, one by one, while an endless line forms in front of the front desk. 80-plus checkouts aren't unusual for our hotel on Friday mornings, but 110-plus is a problem. Normally when the morning shift has a workload this big, our front desk manager comes in early to help, but he couldn't this time since he took a personal day since his mother fell ill. That left our director with only one choice, to ask the night audit to stay late and help until our reservations people clocked in and could then replace us at the front desk. See, my colleague doesn't like staying late, especially since he works at a second job with his father in the afternoon, meaning he only has the morning and early afternoon to sleep. I don't like staying late on Fridays because of the amount of checkouts, which means it'll be forever before you can take a breath and even more so before you can leave. However, this time our director didn't even ask my colleague and instead told me to stay late because we would have a sizable workload and about a third of it would require someone that spoke Spanish, or it would slow down everything to a crawl. I told him I would not be staying late that morning, and before I could get another word in, he started yammering about how I'm wrong and I should be more of a team player and that he would be very grateful for it. Wanting to get back to my sleep, I told him to ask my colleague and he said he couldn't, that they needed me, and when I asked him why, he clearly stated, we need 2 Spanish speakers that morning to make sure everything goes okay with the checkouts. Not one for missing an opportunity to get payback. I replied, sorry boss, I don't speak Spanish, turned off my phone and went back to sleep. The next story is titled, Taking Advantage of Someone on His Last Day in the Military? See how that goes for you. My dad was literally working the last day of his enlistment in the Navy. He worked in communications, but his supervisor decided to get some manual labor out of him on his last day by making my dad put down new tile in one of the mess halls. Since it was a direct order, he had to comply and do the job. He carefully laid down perfectly spaced tiles in the entire room. It took him the rest of the day, but he made sure that it was as perfectly lined up as humanly possible. Supervisor looks in the room, approves the job, closes the door and tells him he can go home. What he didn't realize is that my dad used absolutely no glue of any kind. I don't know what happened the next day when someone actually discovered what he did, but I am sure it didn't go well for the supervisor. He never heard anything about it, but was planning to play dumb and say he didn't know it needed glue. After all, it was a job he was never trained for. The next story is titled, "Why Do I Need to Watch Your Kids at a Convention?" I'm a big Wargames player, and a local store used to buy tickets and rent a bus to bring people to a Games Workshop convention in Baltimore, Games Day. The cost they charge covers the bus, and a one-day ticket. The only caveat is that kids under 18, 16 with a note and an older buddy had to have at least one adult with them, who was also paying full entry, on the idea that the parent would stay with their child. This was made explicit in following years. Now the convention was located in the prime shopping area of the Baltimore waterfront, so every year there are a few parents who come to go shopping. Usually though they have a few other parents who agree to watch the younger ones though. The year this took place, my friend Hal and I ended up going. Keep in mind that we're both in our mid-20s. So as we go through our morning at the convention, we noticed that a familiar group of boys were following us. When asked, we were told, "We should stay with you too because you're responsible." None of their parents were in sight. Or on the site as it turns out. Most of them were cool, at least as cool as a 10-year-old can be to someone in their mid-20s. Ages were from 8 to 16. We ended up grouping them up with an older kid as an assistant buddy, and took them with us. It's not like their parents were around for us to give them back after all, and we knew most of them from the shop. Made sure they got turns at the different events, nothing at the convention could be called inappropriate, and generally made the best of it. But hey, we were still a bit angry at having them foisted on us without being asked. Well, it turns out none of them were given enough money for lunch. They had their own money, which they spent on swag, but the cash their parents gave them wasn't enough to cover an actual lunch at the convention all. It averaged about $3 per kid, when that was the price of a soda. So, Hal and I took all of their lunch cash, and took them to Hooters. Used that money, and some of our own to make sure the waitresses were extra attentive, and had them at their own table. We sat nearby to keep an eye on them, had them order whatever they wanted that a kid could legally get, no booze of course, and between the restaurant being mostly dead, and the fact that Hal and I were tipping well, meant there were buxom scantily clad women around constantly, almost a 2:1 ratio, kid to waitress. They must have eaten 5 platters of wings before they were through, not including the ones they ordered but didn't like, usually because it was too spicy. Those got bagged up into a cooler bag. Told them it wasn't an issue, just order something they did like. At the end we picked up the tab, but not before calling the trip organizer, Jim, to let him know what happened. Was told it wouldn't be an issue, get him a receipt. So we get the group scrubbed up, helped by the assistant buddies, and back to the convention, and finished the afternoon. So we got back to the bus, and gave Jim the receipt for lunch, as well as any other necessary items, mostly beverages, gotta keep hydrated, that we bought them afterwards. Just for them, not our bills. We paid for our lunch separately for example. The bus was set to leave at 6 p.m, and we were told be back for 5 p.m. just in case, because the trip would leave, full or not. So around 5:30 the parents start coming back in, only to meet Jim at the front. He refused to let them on until they paid us back for watching their kids. Told them that if they didn't pay by 6, the bus would be leaving and that they would still owe the tab. One parent asked for a delay to hit an ATM, and was granted permission to go. Jim told the rest that the bus would leave when the dad got back. A few other parents asked to see the bill, which is where they discovered that we took their precious angels to Hooters, never mind the fact that we were at a convention about a game where people kill aliens with chainswords. Jim informed them that if they had spoken to Hal and I before the convention started, then maybe they would have learned about our lunch plans, and could have watched their kids themselves. Didn't shut up the few Karens in the group, but it reduced most of it to grumbling. About this point the first dad came back, and asked his share, was told, and left most of the parents in shock. They apparently didn't have that much cash still on them, and Jim wasn't going to give them any more time. pay up and board, or stay behind and pay later. The first dad offered to lend money to the rest, not a guy you want to owe money to from what I gather, with some accepting, the rest finding the cash in purses and wallets. Jim ended up handing us $500. Almost $200 for the chicken, the rest he charged them as a kid time and fee. The next story is titled, When Following the Rules Gets Really Crappy. I'm at Costco trying to order a pair of glasses. If you've never been to Costco, the optical department is usually either next to the entrance or next to the membership desk on the way to the exit. If it's the latter, the entire area is pandemonium from people trying to exit, return things, get memberships, order optical lenses. My local Costco is the latter. I'm standing there with my ticket waiting to be called. My ticket is like 54 and they're on number 48 and there are only 3 guys, so this is taking a while. I notice a woman in the area hold a fussy toddler, I suppose just on the verge of being able to talk, looking for the first available employee. It just so happens that one of the optical guys was done with a customer, so the woman goes up to him and they have an exchange like this. Woman, W, excuse me, I. Optical guy, Og, ma'am, you need to take a ticket and wait. W, but I just. Og, ma'am, take a ticket. There were other people in front of you. W, yeah, but I just wanted to. Og, ma'am. Take a ticket. That's the last time I'm going to tell you. You can wait in line like everyone else. At this point, the woman accepts defeat and her toddler is getting fussy. She grabs a ticket and puts her child on the ground. The kid is crying at this point loudly, but I have my headphones in, just trying to wait for my turn. And then it happens. This kid unleashes a torrent of crap that basically explodes his pants and gets all over the AC display crap they try to sell you on the way out. I'm amazed that much poop came out of this little boy. He's crying up a storm and his mum is trying to comfort him, but it just keeps coming and coming. At the same time, he's waddling around and getting it all over the place. The entire area, myself included, jumps back and is giving this lady some space. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, it stops. The kid is crying, his mum holding him, crap running down her arms. There is fecal matter in about a 10-foot radius everywhere. All traffic to the exit has stopped as horrified shoppers look on. The optical department, including Og, stare at this woman. She marches herself, son in tow, up to the man. W, I was wondering if you could tell me where the bathroom was. Og sheepishly points to an area behind the registers and W walks away. I decide to come back later when the area doesn't smell like a raccoon ducking died, trying to stifle my laughter the whole way through. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.